the profession, we were engaging in so many programs with veterinarians. Basically, we're doing all these programs for veterinarians, updating their knowledge, improving their skills, so on. But we had hardly any communication with general public. I mean, in official communication. So we were lacking that kind of mode or media. So this 73rd Executive Committee had a novel idea of starting a magazine, Your Veterinarian Magazine. This was started recently in April. We launched our first magazine, first ever magazine launched in SLVA history as a brainchild of our president, Dr. Nalika Gunawardhana. So we launched our first edition, first version, volume, at the annual World Veterinary Day celebration, which was held in April in Colombo. There we launched the first volume of this magazine. So now we are moving into the second volume of the magazine, which will be published in July. So as a preparation, we thought of having ourselves updated with the new knowledge on communicating science to public. So there we are today. We are organizing this webinar for our authors who contributed for the first magazine, first volume of the magazine, and as well as we have invited enthusiastic veterinarians, those who are interested in writing in future to our magazine. So we came forward and we organized myself and Dr. Taranga Tordania, who are members of this editorial committee of this magazine, You Are Veterinarian, will be the moderators of this webinar. And we have invited 4 resource persons. They will be doing presentations today. To start the session, I would like to invite our present president, Dr. Ariyananda Gunawardhana, to welcome the gathering. Thank you. Dr. Ariyananda Gunawardhana, over to you.
Hello, everybody can hear me?
Yes, Dr.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Disneka. With your short introduction, I would like to welcome you all for today's webinar series, the first webinar that we are conducting through the media platform of the Sri Lanka Veterinary Association. As you said, Dr. Disneka, actually this is the main initiative of Dr. Taranga and Dr. Disneka to keep this magazine as a sustainable venture. And we know as basic, we know as the veterinarian is not, the communication is not a easy thing. It's actually science when we are winning hearts and minds of the public, when we are writing to the public as the authors. So ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to warmly welcome you all in this pleasant evening for this communicating science to public and how to engage in hearts and minds webinar. And here with us today, actually, we have invited our key resource personnel in the country in the particular field, Mr. Nalika Gunawardhana, the science writer, and as a media consultant, and as the main resource person, and other panelists, Dr. Pial Ariyananda is a consultant in substantial innovation, and Ms. Sanni with Tendacon is a scientific writer, and also Mr. Chamira, Devake, the global certified digital analyst. Actually, as Disneka said, initiating of project ventures under different committees, different excos is a very easy thing under your efforts. But the difficulties we are facing today is to keep them as sustainable project ventures to the near to the future. So I'll take the opportunity to thank Dr. Taranga and Nalika, who came forward to take this initiative. And without them, you all actually in our committee, we wouldn't have this type of webinar series. So with that short welcome, I would like to warmly welcome you all today to this pleasant evening and enjoy the webinar and get the maximum out of this, our speakers. And I'm sure that you will have a lot of take-home messages today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Randhika. With that,
Yes,
kind words, we are now moving to the program today. So from here onwards, the program will be moderated by Dr. Taranga Toradeniya. And meanwhile, I would like to request from you all to keep your microphone off and camera off. So we will have a time slot after the presentations for our questions and answers. So Dr. Taranga Toradeniya, could you please proceed?
Yes, thank you, Disneka. I hope you all can hear me well.
Yes.
Okay. So as you can see, the first title of this series is How to Engage Hearts and Minds. So here we have with us today 4 well-experienced panel experts in this field who will tell how they have captured the hearts and minds of the public and kept them bound to their articles in communicating science to the public. So as Disneka mentioned, we have some ground rules. So please mute your microphones and keep your cameras off. And we will have a discussion forum after the first session. So the first half, we are trying to cover several aspects. So this will be an overview, and we are hoping to have detailed discussions later on, depending on your request and requirements. During the first half, Mr. Nalika will start the session, and we will discuss the whys, hows, what, and wheres in public communication. So we'll start with why it's important, moving on to writing popular articles from research, and making the complex simple, the style, the approach of writing. And then we'll also discuss about beyond information, because we are so keen to give information data to the public and to educate them. But doing it the right way is very important, because ultimately our target is the public. So we'll discuss about beyond information, education, and inspiring the public, and also about how to capture your audience and keep them with you. So during the second half, this first half will be a round of discussions. It's kind of a panel discussion. And then during the next half, we will accommodate your questions, and we hope that it will be a very interactive session during the second half of this webinar. So without much ado, I will move on to introduce our speakers today. So first we have Mr. Nalika Gunawardhana. Everyone knows about Nalika. He's trained as a science writer, and he's a very experienced journalist across print, broadcast, and web outlets in Sri Lanka, as well as across Asia. He has over 30 years of experience, and he has worked for national newspapers, international news magazines, business magazines, radio and TV channels, as well as global websites covering science development and media related issues. He has also done journalist training in over a dozen countries in Asia, and been a communications consultant to UN organizations and development agencies. He's a leading analyst on social, cultural, political impacts of information and communication technologies in Sri Lanka and South Asia. From the early 1990s, Nalika has been chronicling and critiquing the evolution of information society in Sri Lanka. He has written and spoken widely on various issues, including social media proliferation, countering online disinformation, which we know as infodemic these days. It's very common, and about safeguarding internet freedoms. So he has vast experience, and I warmly welcome you again, Nalika, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I will introduce the other panelists as well so that we can directly move into the panel discussion. So our next panelist is Dr. Pial Ariyananda. He has a PhD in inorganic chemistry from USA and has years of experience both in research and innovation of polymers, textiles, and chemicals. He has over 20 years of research experience with over 9 years of industrial research and innovation experience. He has many achievements, including international patents. He was an advisor to the Sri Lankan Parliamentary Committee on STEM education reforms of Sri Lanka and formulating policies on IP rights for artists. He is also a visiting lecturer at the Universities of Sri Gunawardhana and Jaffna. Pial is a popular science communicator in Sri Lanka and one of the most sought after scientists in media for scientific opinion. Until recently, he presented a popular science program known as Anantaya in the national radio for over 2.5 years. He is also a contributor to the Sri Lankan Business TV YouTube channel on science and lifestyle related areas. Pial was a columnist on scientific articles in many Sri Lankan newspapers and magazines. You may see his articles, videos all over the web, and he wrote 2 blogs for a long period known as Alchemist's Laboratory and Alchemist's Diary. So knowing his credentials, you will know that he's a true alchemist in Sri Lanka. So thank you, Pial, for accepting the invitation, and I hope you will share your experience and the audience will learn a lot from both of you. Our next speaker is Mr. Chamira Devake. Mr. Chamira is a science graduate by education with a BSc from the University of Colombo and is currently reading for a master's MSc in applied statistics in the University of Colombo. And he is a digital marketer by profession, a Google certified digital analyst, and a blogger and activist by choice. So Chamira has over 13 years of experience in blogging and over 10 years experience in activism and 7 years in digital marketing. So outside his work, he enjoys chess, music, and history. So you will hear from his experience, and it's really important to know how the younger generation think about science and feel about science. So Chamira will be a very good resource to discuss and analyze about that generation as well. So thank you, Chamira, for accepting the invitation and being here with us today. So next we have Sanni Tendacon. With very short notice, she accepted the invitation because the earlier agreed speaker is unable to attend today due to some urgent, unavoidable matters. So thank you, Sanni, again for being here with a very short notice. So Sanni will also tell us about the new generation, what their interests are, and the certain different aspects in scientific communication. So Sanni is a writer and she worked in few newspapers, published 1 book. She is currently working in advertising as a creative writer, Sinhala digital context specialist in Group M and as a web writer as well. So I'm very happy to introduce all 4 resource persons today. I'm sure that you will gain much knowledge and also have a very good discussion. So without much ado, I will invite Mr. Nalika to do his presentation on why it's important to communicate to the public and also to tell us about how to write popular articles from research. It can be your own research or others' research. So over to you, Nalika.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and involving me. Thank you, SLVA, for organizing this webinar, starting off with science communication as your first topic. Excuse me. So what I intend doing today is hoping to get our discussion, the first half of this webinar, started. I will touch on a few of the basics of science communication for the public. I will use a few slides, PowerPoint slides for that purpose. So let me try and share my screen with you. Just a moment. Here we go. Let me go for full screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, very well, Nalika. Yes,
all right. So let's first of all start with the question, why communicate science to the public? I think the answer is fairly clear and self-evident. As a former chief scientific advisor to the UK government has famously said, science isn't finished until it's communicated. Until it's communicated among scientists, peer-to-peer communication, and also to the public, and the public includes policymakers. So in the Sri Lankan context, there is an extra reason why communicating science to the public, scientific concepts and understanding to the public is very important, because our society right now is steeped in a lot of myths. Traditional myths have now been joined by more modern myths, which are actually causing a big problem, rotting the public mind, I would say. And the only way we can tackle this, in my belief, is by enhancing scientific literacy among all people. What kind of science? The next question I want to pose is, what kind of science should we communicate when we talk about public communication of science? It's not the formal or structured scientific subjects as they teach in schools or in universities. In fact, quite the opposite. We are talking about non-formal, informal communication of science, and where it contributes to the enhancing of scientific literacy. Very, if you summarize it in another way, how to promote and nurture critical thinking, especially in relation to health, nutrition, environment, everyday technologies, and the consumer decisions that we all have to make in modern societies. Now, in all these, on a day-to-day basis, a basic scientific literacy is very helpful, the lack of which means people go astray, people are open to being exploited, and this we see happening all around us. So scientific literacy, I would say, is an intellectual vaccine, as one of the famous astronomers in the US, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, has said, called it an intellectual vaccine, which is crucial to survive, for our survival in modern societies. So that is the case for making scientific literacy an everyday pursuit. And what happens when a society cannot think critically is very, very well captured in this cartoon by our genius cartoonist Avantha Attigala, who drew it a few years ago, actually, and which is still valid. And if you look at the cartoon carefully, you will see it's not just the politicians. There is a judge, there is even a man with a stethoscope. So there are professionals, there are politicians, there are law enforcement people, and ordinary public following the astrologer. So this is I think, mirroring a reality in our society. What can be done about it? One response is promoting scientific literacy. It's a long-term investment in responding to this. Who can communicate science? You and I both. So you as scientists, you may be in research or you may be in professional practice. And there are also technologies like Chamira. There are STEM teachers at school and university levels. There are science communicators like myself who work in either the mainstream media or now increasingly using web-based media. We are intermediaries. We don't do scientific research ourselves, but we help amplify the research done by scientists and also make it almost like translating science or scientific findings to non-scientists. There are also, in some cases, citizen scientists who have lots of ground level experience and expertise worth sharing with fellow citizens. Now, this is the difference. In this slide, I want to show the difference in public communication of science and the peer-to-peer communication in science that all of you members of SLVA must be doing. Now, if your audience is scientific, when you do peer-to-peer communications, if you look at this first triangle or the pyramid, so you start with a lot of background, then the supporting details, and then at the end or towards the end of a research paper or research communication, you have the results and discussion. That is for the scientific audience. Now, it is turned upside down when talking to a public or non-specialist audience. To gain their attention, you have to go with the findings or the results first. And then there is always that question or the skeptics asking, so what? So you have to relate it to their reality, their problems, and make it worthwhile, worth their attention, their time to continue reading or consuming what you communicate. And then you can give the details. So the science communication to peers is different from science communication to the public. Just wanted to flag that. Now, there are several challenges in communicating science to the public. One major challenge is there is no captive audience. They are scattered, they are diverse, and they may be pursuing lots of other interests. And these days, with the growth of media and social media, there are lots of other distractions for them. There's politics, there's entertainment, sports, and even gossip. So science and science communications to the public has to compete with all this. So that is a big challenge. And there are also a few in the public who are very hostile or very anti-science. So you have to win them over through engagement. That is another challenge. And also, a lot of people have problems, have deep concerns, worries, but they don't know how to find solutions that are rooted in science. So we have to link people's problems and needs with solutions or answers or partial answers that science can or research can provide. So these are some of the challenges I just quickly identified. We can come back to this later when we are discussing it with our participants. But based on my own experience, as well as working with lots of scientists whose communications training I have participated in, here are a few very basic tips on making your communication more appealing and more engaging to a non-specialist. One is using everyday language. Simple words are always better than heavy words or complex words. Write short sentences and short paragraphs. There can be any number of paragraphs. There is no limit to that. In a 1,000-word article, you can have 20, 30, 40 paragraphs even, but shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs when you are doing written communication. Friendly language. The scientists are usually trained to speak in somewhat neutral and seemingly unfriendly language. But when communicating with the public, it is always better to use a simpler, more friendly word. I will take one example. A lot of people, especially in institutions, a lot of scientists use the word procure, procuring equipment or consumables. In popular terms, that means buy. So instead of saying procure, use the word buy. Things like that. There are lots of other examples I can think of. Avoiding jargon is another key necessity. I know sometimes if it is really necessary, introduce an occasional piece of jargon, but explain it the first time and try to keep it to a minimum, because jargons put off some members in your audience. Similarly, lots of acronyms and abbreviations are used in science, but when it comes to public communication, let's try and keep them again to a minimum. Using metaphors is another tactic. It is good up to a point, as long as the metaphors are fairly clear, they are interesting, they will help. But sometimes if the metaphor can confuse the audience, better avoid it. So use it with caution. Same thing with figures or statistics. Statistics are good, they are necessary, but too much of statistics, especially without the context, can be putting some of your audience, pushing it away, because people may not get all the percentages and all the proportions and so on. So these are some of the key or basic tips that I wanted to offer. There are a few strategies. Again, I will only flag it here, some of which already you are using in the magazine, first issue. Storytelling, using case studies. Some of this, I mean, all of this is fairly well known. Using case studies or real life examples to share information and advice. Celebrity power, by using Malini Fonseca in the first issue, you have tried to tap into her celebrity power, which will attract a certain kind of audience interest because of her. And so you put her on the cover. But the thing with celebrities is some of them fall from grace very easily. So you have to choose the right kind of celebrities who will not get into controversies easily. Customizing the communication so that depending on what your audience needs and your understanding of the audience, see what kind of information are they looking for. Not what you want to give them, but what they are looking for. In your area, it could be about pet food, about pet diseases, about human-wildlife conflicts, and so on. Use of images is another well-known strategy, really helps. And instead of always written prose, Q&A kind of quick text also is another strategy that works. So these are some of the ways to engage a mass audience. As my last slide, I want to very quickly share a few thoughts on the first issue. I know it was hastily put together. This is not at all a criticism of your efforts, but this is by way of suggesting ways to get better as you go along. I found the first issue had diverse topics and issues covered, and so it can appeal to a broader audience. Visually engaging, many images used well. But I found that some of the articles were too technical. They need a bit of editing to suit a non-specialist audience, because you're not doing peer-to-peer communication here. You are talking to or engaging a non-specialist. These days, COVID-19 is a major topic of concern. And there are two or three articles, but instead of using the technical name SARS-CoV-2, it would have been better if COVID-19, the more popular name for the pandemic, was used. There are three categories covered in the first issue itself: domestic animals, farm animals, and wild animals. I'm wondering what your audience is like, whether this mix will appeal to enough people, or whether more people would have an interest in domestic animals, for example. So knowing and identifying your audience a bit better would also be good. And finally, don't print PowerPoint slides in articles. That doesn't really help, and it defeats the purpose. So your association, you have lots of strengths that you can optimize for the future, for future public engagement through the magazine and other outreach methods, because people are constantly interested in animals, and so it's a subject that is naturally bringing people's interest and attention. Veterinarians combine subject knowledge, field experience, and expertise. So you have so much to share, and lots of it is needed out there. And then pet families, like me and my pet that you can see in this slide, pet families are always looking for clear, reliable, authentic information, because there is, as Taranga said, there is misinformation out there. And finally, there is also conflict. There is some kind of ongoing, long simmering conflicts between humans and monkeys, humans and other pests, and so on, quite apart from the best known human-elephant conflict. So again, solutions, lasting solutions are needed. Can you offer a platform for solutions to be discussed in public, because public is a key stakeholder? So that's all I will say for now. Sorry to have taken a bit more than the 10 minutes. I will stop sharing the screen now, and let's in the next round see how we can revisit some of these points I flagged. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Nalika, for a very good opening. So we will have time for questions and discussions later on after this first round. And you can type your question in the chat box, but please remember to mention the speaker that you're targeting the question to. So next we will move to Dr. Pial Ariyananda. Pial, over to you. He will talk to you about how to make the complex simple, and perhaps vice versa.
Hello, can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, Pial, we can hear you and see you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to share my knowledge with you. And as Nalika, I am also a pet owner. We have adopted 2 kittens recently after a long deliberation with my family. So we are pet owners now, and even before, when we were small, we had so many pets. So it is also very, very familiar, very close, intimate feeling for us having pets. So in today's context, I would like to start with the breaking news. So the breaking news is, experts warn Russian chemical labeled as this, spilled from the ship Express Pearl, mixed with 3.5 weight to volume mineral mix, could be deadly to aquatic life. So as scientists, as veterinarians, and as the general audience who know what's happening in current situation, will read this, and then some people will be like the same person like in the slide, right? Will be surprised, and some will not, because everything written in this is truth, but the truth is hidden in different ways. So this is how the communication can be communicated in a good way and a bad way. If you decipher this chemical is caustic soda written in Russian, right? 3.5% weight to volume mineral water is seawater. And then it said aquatic life. Of course, salt water is deadly, maybe deadly for inland aquatic life. So everything is true, but it is expressed in a different context. So today, I'm going to speak about making complex to simple and simple to complex. So if you see the slide, you can see complex and a lot of information comes into from one end, and it is made in a very nice, simple one line information, and then it is projected in systematic yet a little bit complex manner. So this is what we are doing as writers. So as writers, as authors of books or articles, writers, and anybody, what we do is we communicate what we know to the public who may know things or who may not know. So we have to pay the attention. It's all about paying attention to whom we are communicating. So it is just like marketing, right? We need to capture the attention of the audience. We need to understand your customer. If you don't understand your customer, your marketing strategy will be failed. So that's why you need to map the demographics. And as Nalika said, rightfully, your customers, your readers are scattered. They can be very well educated veterinarians, or they can be not so educated people living in different areas of the country. So their grasp of knowledge and their level of grasping the knowledge is different. So that you need to communicate equally to both of the ends of the spectrum. So that is why you need to understand your customer very well and basically live in their life, right? So you might be writing an article about how to train a dog, right? In that, you will be addressing to a very well educated person who has multiple dogs with hybrids, maybe who will have good behavior. And then another person is a newcomer to the dog as pet, to have a pet as a dog. So that he doesn't know anything about disciplining a dog. So these information you have to communicate equally with the capturing their attention very well. So that is why you need to build the trust. So as a writer, you cannot gain the trust overnight. You will be writing your, probably as a debut writer, you will be writing on your Facebook page first. As a writer, I started my blogging in 2007. So 2007, I started a blog called Alchemist Laboratory, Alchemiage Rasayanagare. So then I started communicating science through that blog. And then I somehow gained a reputation as a science communicator. So then later I started Alchemist's Diary, Alchemiage Dinapotha, where I started communicating about day-to-day life in laboratory, day-to-day life as a PhD student and a postdoctoral scientist, so that people could get some kind of a knowledge how they can see our lives through our writing. So that's how I created my own brand as a communicator, scientific writer. So, and then we have to give the guidance, accurate guidance and trustworthy information. So if you mislead them, your readers will not take you as a serious person to go for information. So because of that, you have to give accurate, trustworthy information all the time, including guidance so that they will come to see your articles regularly. For do that, you have to do your homework very well. Not only reading one article. If there's an article that has another reference, you have to go to that reference also. Always go to the fact-finding mission where you can get the facts from the first article. Sometimes even newspaper articles, they write things, and then if you take that as a reference, your information may be wrong. So you have to go back all the way to the first information. And it takes only one single moment to lose the trust. It's like a family. It's like a life, right? Just one single moment you do something wrong, some mistake with your audience, your readers, you will lose trust, and then the readers will not come to you back again. To do that, you have to identify the pain points of your audience. For example, if we are talking about human-elephant conflict, you have to identify what are the pain points of both sides, right? The farmers get attacked by the elephants all the time, and they lose their lives, and they are kind of in bad mood, in anger with elephants, right? They are innocent, but the problem is they are angry with the elephant. And on the other hand, elephants don't know what it is. They come to get food. Their habitats are destroyed, so they come to the villages. So you have to find both sides. You cannot talk to the elephants, of course, but you need to use the analytics, and you need to talk to people. You need to use chat or whatever to get the pulse. That is where you need to construct your article, right? If you are writing about COVID-19, if your next magazine goes for all the COVID-19, then the interest, the variety, that will be lost. So you have to find out what articles I'm going to write, and what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses. So always, if you want to do, the best is address to your strengths and move forward. So your article, normally, if it's a web-based one, I would keep that as 700 words or less than 1,000 words most of the time, because most of the people are in a very busy life. So if they pick up a magazine, either they are in a very leisure mood, or they are in the middle of doing something, like either they are in a bus, or either they are in the car, or sometimes they need to just take off their mind from their day-to-day busy life. So they have very limited time. If the article is very interesting, then you can go for about 1,500 words, even to 2,000 words. I have seen some writers writing about 2,000, 3,000 word articles, but that is good, because if it's a real good article, you will not lose the attention. But if it is a real technical article, highly technical article, it might lose attention, so that you will need to keep the information concise, precise, and in a smaller number of words, so that you will communicate it very well and quickly. For that, you need to plan your mission before you write article. So you have to figure out what are you going to write, and then you need to identify what are you going to address, what is the customer problem I am going to address, and then you need to gather the facts and figures and accurately, and then you have to structure your article in such a way how I am going to communicate to this audience. So there are 9 basic types of tones in your article, right? 9 basic tone types are, I cannot remember exactly now. 9 basic, the humor, the sadness, the informative or general, horror, and there are 2 other I will explain in that. I have written down, but I cannot remember that exactly. And the other thing is, you have to tell a story. instead of just writing, people love to read stories. We always love to read stories. People connect lives, the articles and everything with their life scenario. So you start a story, you start an article about, okay, I had a dog when I was small, and that dog had this problem, and then you relate that story to your article so that people will connect with that real life scenario, and then they will feel that, okay, my dog also had this kind of a problem, so I should read this article, and then like that. So you need to construct your article in such a way it connects with the audience and your language. And as Nalika previously mentioned, you have to use your language style effectively so that it communicates well with the audience and it connects. And the other thing is, always use the middle path. Don't use very technical language, very jargon, very highly jargon language, or don't use a very loose language, because it will lose the professionalism of your article. You have to always be technical, analytical, yet very simple. And as it says, keep it simple, stupid, and simplify the complex scenarios. And making things complex. For example, of course, you are writing an article, but that article has to give an inspiration or a take-home message. It's not just an article. So you have to do some kind of a simple analysis of your facts, right? It may not be very complex one, because what we are seeing right now in newspapers or any other things, people write things. People write, journalists write things, but they do the information overload, but they will not analyze the scenario. The best example is the current situation with the Express Pearl ship. People give a lot of information, but only a handful of people will analyze the situation and tell people this is why and this is how it is. So you always have to answer the why question of the reader, because people read articles to know what they don't know. So that's why you have to answer the why, what, and how, all these questions. And people want to know this information. Just writing an article may not be enough. That's why I wanted to say that making simple things complex. You have to analyze, and also you need to show your professionalism and your level of writing, so that it will gain your popularity, as well as they will take you as a serious writer. And also you have to give insights. You have to give your interpretation of your facts and figures, and it should be accurate. Your article, you should conclude your article with a strong fact-based opinion, not just another article with opinion taken out of the thin air. And always, if you feel like you need to continue, you have to make your reader come looking for your article next time. Recently, I found out something very recently, about 5 minutes ago. Nice set of information, very concise summary from Nalika. I just picked up. So this is the summary of that. You have to use everyday language, but it's simple. And then short sentences. It's a friendly language. Avoid technical jargon too much, abbreviations and acronyms, and use metaphors. Sorry, Nalika, I couldn't ask you, but just referenced yourself, you down there. So this is something you need to do. And I'm almost out of time. So the last slide I would like to talk about is making your article attractive. So you have to catch the eye of the audience from the first letter you type, right? And it should be catchy yet professionally acceptable. If you say Pyumi Hansamali Niruvati Nirodhayana Way, the title is very catchy, but it is not very professionally acceptable. Here, if you interpret this Niru Watin, Watin means face, Niru means no, makeup or something. So you can write the same article, same thing, but it should be nice and professionally acceptable to a general audience. And you have to have an interesting writing style. It's a mix of understandable written and decent spoken language. So that's how what I have understood during last 10 years. In the beginning of my blogging, I wrote complete technical articles and nobody even clicked it. But now eventually I understood how it should be communicated, and now I'm writing very simple sentences with understandable words, and that helps understanding. That helps the audience to understand better. And you have to keep the reader engaged and give something they are eager to read, and keep technical jargon simplified. As I said, never translate in from Google, because I have seen some people translating directly from Google and writing single articles. That is a disaster, because Google really doesn't know what is translating. And the best, get your readers commenting on your article when you meet them later. If they say, okay, your article is very interesting, I really love your writing style, that is where you win writing. So that's pretty much it. Sorry about going 2 minutes over, and we will discuss it with the rest later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pial, for that interesting presentation. So I will move on to the next speaker, Mr. Chamira Devake. Over to you, Chamira.
Hi, hello everyone. Let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, just hold on a second. Right, I think we are good. Right, I am going to share my screen, and I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay.
We can see your
minimize everything. Okay, all right. So good evening, everyone. So we have a lot of ground to cover. So I will try to be as boring as possible. I'm sorry, I will try to be as interesting as possible. Well, that caught your attention, right? Well, it should. That's the whole point of my my entire presentation today, at least 90% of it. So I think like all of us here, we are very familiar with the traditional PCST methods, right? The science communication methods, the deficit method, the dialogue method, and the participation methods. So I'm not going to go into a rather boring recapture of what all of you may have learned in your 4th semesters in science education. Rather, let's play a game. What you should be seeing on your screen is basically a set of 2 historical documents. One is a fictitious document which carries absolutely no meaning, right? That was actually a literary work done by a contemporary artist in the Renaissance era. Basically, he took pleasure in writing books that seemed scientific, and then basically, you know, he enjoyed in writing all these coded languages and so on and on. So one is that, and the other one is an actual scientific work that was done by a prominent scientist. Now, 2 images are on your screen. What I want you to do is I want you to make a guess. Which one is authentic? Which one is not? Not going to take much time, but let's see. Can we have the chat? The chat is open. I'm trying to be as interactive as possible. Let's see. Can we see? Sorry, I accidentally turned it off. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So can we have a, I don't know, not a show of hands, but a show of chats? Which one do you think is authentic? The left or right? Come on, everyone. Just type a simple word. It's left or right. Or you can just unmute your microphone and just, yeah, okay. So you think the right one is authentic, right one is authentic, right one is authentic. Okay, we have over 50 participants. Okay, left one is authentic. Come on, right one is authentic. Okay, keep going. Left one is authentic, right one is authentic, right one is authentic. Okay, right one is authentic, right one is authentic. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. So I'm sorry to shatter your dreams, but the right one is the fake one. The left one is actually a mathematical proof taken from a 17th century manuscript, which was later printed. But the right one is actually a book taken from Codex Seraphinius. It's a fictitious work done by an Italian artist called Serafine. So he actually made all these nice books, which he actually made into a collection. It was a pseudoscience. Okay, you can't even call it pseudoscience because it was a pseudo language. So none of this is real. The scripts or the glyphs that you see, none of them are real. And when you have time, just go and search for Codex Seraphinius. It will be a nice pastime. So the point is, what is true and what is not. So it all depends on the communication, right? So it's easy that, so easily can all of us be misdirected or even misguided, right? Just by employing the right tricks of the trade, right? So that is the whole end game here. So I'm sorry, why isn't my screen moving? Right, okay. So the next question, have we got it right? And I think the pictures speak for themselves. I think all of us here will recognize these images. So this is basically from Kagala. I think like all of us know what these images represent. They are basically misguided people going after something like Codex Seraphinius, so to speak, right? So how did we end up in here? So that is the question we are trying to answer. And is there anything that we can do to prevent, or is there any way that we as scientists, and I mean like we as scientists, when I say I represent you here, is there anything that scientists can do to make this imbalance a little bit more balanced? Well, the good news is we can. So that is what we are here to learn, right? So let's go into the details of it. The whole reason why this is so, the whole reason why people are unable to sift through the whole bunch of communication that bombards them each and every day is because their attention is finite. Attention is a finite resource. Now, when we say finite resources, we think about oil, we think about gold, we think about the number of theoretical bitcoins that can be mined, we think about the breathable air, or we think about potable water. But we necessarily don't think about attention as a finite resource. Well, it is. Well, as the legend goes, the goldfish is said to have a 30-second memory span. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm exactly in the right place to get that doubt cleared. Whether a goldfish actually has a 30-second memory span or not, you tell me. But that is how the saying goes. Well, guess what? A human on social media, the attention span, the average attention span on a person scrolling through a news feed on Facebook or Instagram or something like that is actually 7 seconds. 7 seconds, that's the truth. So basically a goldfish, if the legend is true, that is, if the goldfish is really only capable of having a 30-second attention span, then the goldfish is 4 times better than the average human scrolling through their news feeds. So you only get 7 seconds. So which is why we call attention is a finite resource. Just ask Apollo Robbins. Now, if you don't know who Apollo Robbins is, this is Apollo Robbins. He's known as the gentleman thief in the trade. He has done a lot of TED sessions. He's done a lot of other presentations. Now, this guy is amazing. You should have a look at this guy on YouTube. His name is Apollo Robbins. So basically what he does is so amazing because he just gets people up on stage and then completely robs them while everybody else is watching. But the funny thing is everybody else can see that the target is being robbed except the exact target who is being robbed. How does he do it? Well, he explains it. He explains that attention is a finite resource, and when overloaded, attention can go anywhere. And just when the attention goes somewhere, Apollo Robbins steps in and then, steals your wedding ring, for that matter. So in this limited attention era, in this limited attention span era, how do we break through all this noise, all this cacophony, and then reach our audience? That is the crucial question. Well, it's simple as A, B, and C. I think even before me, Nalika spoke a good deal about attention. And then, of course, Pial made a very good exposition on this topic. So let me just break it down to ABCs, following the example of simplifying the complex. It's as simple as ABC. You arrest the attention, you have a build up, and then you end up with a climax. So I could have used another word in place of the word arrest, but I did use the word arrest. The word arrest actually has a lot of connotations. That means an interruption to the normal flow. You hit somebody with something so that their attention is immediately diverted to you, right? So that is the attention grabbing part of it. So most of the time we don't pay much attention to this part. We don't think it's necessary to arrest the attention of the people. We think just by the merit of the stuff that we say, because we are speaking science, right? We speak science, right? So that should have some merit, right? Well, wrong. Well, that is wrong. I mean, like, for the majority of the people, that is not the case, right? So that is why we need to arrest their attention, because they are engaged in a lot of in a lot of other activities. Oh, okay, I see the chat now. Latest research: human attention span 8 seconds, goldfish 9 seconds. So the goldfish beat us by 1 second. That's good. That's good to know. In further presentations, I'm going to correct this fact. Thank you very much. So how do you arrest the attention? Well, in the trade of marketing, we call it a hook, right? So what is a hook and how can we employ a hook is worth an entire semester's worth of study. But I'm going to bring it down to a few things in a further slide. But once you arrest the attention, then it's necessary for us to have a build-up, a logical, cohesive flow from point A to point B. It could be temporal. For example, you could be talking about 2 different time spans. Or for example, you could be talking about 2 different places: spatial, temporal, logical. When you say logical, it could be a comparison, a contrast, or a sequence of events, or an escalation, de-escalation, anything. But it's important that the entire narrative has a cohesive body of connectivity, because without a cohesive body of connectivity, without a single thread that joins everything, that conjoins everything, then basically we will leave our audience frustrated, because they themselves will be put to the task of figuring out what the connection is, which they don't like to do, right? When a mental task is too much for us, when we are overloaded, what we do is we just give up, right? That's how we do it. Because of this, we need to provide the connectivity between everything, right? Then finally you have the climax, have a reverberating finale that lives with the audience. Now, I don't know whether you have read this book called Think Fast and Slow. That is an award-winning book, by the way, by award-winning scientists. They literally invented the whole discipline of behavioral science, and they take this concept to the maximum. In that book, basically, they actually there are 2 scientists. They actually take this point to practical applications, and then they have actually come to a point of average end theory. I don't know whether you have heard of this theory. Most of the time, people do not remember the average performance. People remember the variation of the performance in any kind of performance. And also, if there's anything more than people remember, more than the variation of a performance, they remember the end, or they remember the finale, right? So because of this reason, we need to make sure that anything that we are going to present in written, verbal, or any kind of presentation has to have a good climax. It is a must. So these are the ABCs of the attention. With that in mind, let me quickly, there's something wrong with my machine. Just, okay, hold on. Yeah. I think anybody who has had any kind of induction into marketing, even a cursory glance at marketing, will recognize this phrase: content is king. That is something that we used to be, as marketers, used to say in the 70s. Of course, I wasn't in the 70s, but I've heard from reliable sources that used to tell this in the 70s, called content is king. But in the 90s, another phrase got added into this called distribution is queen, and she wears the pants. So the point is, even though content might be the king, the queen is the one who's making the decisions. So because of this reason, it's important that we have a clear idea about how we are going to present what we are going to present as well. So usually in science field, we are very used to the rational route in terms of rational awareness. Now, of course, there are 4 quadrants here. You can have rational awareness, which is education. You can have rational conversion, which is convincing. You can have emotional awareness, which is entertainment. And then, of course, we can have emotional conversion, which is inspiration. Most of the time, what we see is that science communication is all about educating and convincing. We don't think that it's okay for us to entertain. Most of the time, scientists don't think that it is okay for them to entertain people. But yes, there might be some merit to it. I mean, there are so many people, even including Piumi Hansamali, who are veterans in that category of entertainment. So we don't need to raise emotional awareness that much. There are professionals for that particular job. So what we could do instead is to rise to the point of emotional conversion, because science doesn't detach us from emotions. Science gives us the power to tap into the emotions. If what we are saying does not have an impact on the average person's lives, they have absolutely no reason to pay attention to us. So if somehow we can make this connection, right? Why is this important? Not just what is important, not just how is it important. What we have to say is, why is it important to you? Right? The moment we make that connection, everything starts flowing naturally. So which is why we need to have a little bit more effort on the inspiration angle. And we are quite good at it. I mean, like all of the science field, every single person working in the science field is inspired by someone or something. So it's entirely natural that we take up the torch and take the lead of inspiring others as well. It's not that we can't do it. Most of the time, scientists don't think that it's okay or it's appropriate, but yes, it's very appropriate. And in times like this especially, it's not just appropriate but a dire must. And we have some case studies as well. Now, of course, while I don't agree with the title here in this particular news story, this is BBC reporting that possum po a day attracts a huge number of blood donors. And if that is not sufficient to convince you, the country that supplies eyes, apparently Sri Lanka is one of the biggest eye donors among the world, right? And then how did Sri Lanka become the world's biggest eye donor, if that is a fact? Well, the thing is, it has a cultural connection. It has a different thing, right? So it has a cohesive narrative. It somehow catches people's attention, and somehow people have something to hope for. So this is something that we already know. So let me just pick an example that we don't know about. So this is called leverage. Can you hear the voice? Can you hear the voice track?
No, we cannot hear the voice track.
You have when you share it, you have to share with the voice.
Yes, yes. Let me quickly do that now. Sorry about that. Yes. Now it should be clear. Let me quickly play it.
Amar, não tem comparação de torcida, não tem. O resto é resto, o esporte é tudo. Primeiro Deus, segundo esporte, terceira família e quarto meu trabalho.
Prometo que os seus olhos vão continuar assistindo o esporte.
Que os seus pulmões continuarão respirando pelo esporte.
Prometo que o seu coração sempre baterá pelo esporte.
So the actual video is 3 minutes long, but we don't have the luxury of time. So I just ended it at the most crucial moment. So let's just stop for a moment and ask ourselves, Why did the marketing teams, the global marketing agency in Brazil, had to create an artificial reason for people to give their organs as become organ donors? And how does it connect back to the Sri Lankans? What universal truth connects the two cases of Sri Lanka and Brazil? Hint: it's not life after death. Of course, like, the Brazil heart might be still beating for their favorite football team, and Sri Lankans, of course, believe in a life after death. Both of which are fooling the notion of giving their organs or giving their bloods or what, something like that. But that's not what connects. Now, try to put this into the blueprint that I just presented to you. Which one did hold? What actually held all these things together? What motivated these people? What actually brought a drastic change in their otherwise selfish behavior to donate a part of their body, part of themselves, even to somebody else after they have ceased to be, right? So that cohesive narrative, now what I'm trying to tell here is it actually has several layers of meaning. The first layer is obviously that there are parallels, that is the trivial meaning. The much deeper, the second level meaning is that what we naturally have in our culture, somebody had to replicate artificially in Brazil, right? So somehow they have stumbled onto this particular formula which gave the exact results. So what is that formula? How did that come to be, right? So this is something that I'm not going to reveal, because this is something that I want every one of you to discover for yourselves, because I will be leaving the deck with you for you to go through and pursue. But let me just quickly give the secret word to unlocking that secret. That is called the power of stories and storytelling. When you have disconnected facts, that's just what they are, disconnected facts. But when you have a story connecting them, when you have a logical narrative binding all these things together, then it's a different thing. Then it endures, it engages, it inspires, it convinces, it persuades, and then it converts people. And that's when it becomes almost a religion. I don't like to use the word religion, but almost a religion, right? And stories captivate. The most successful marketing campaign done for Sri Lankan Airlines and Sri Lanka tourism for the past 3 years is 31 reasons why you should never visit Sri Lanka, right? And National Geographic had a comment about it, not about this particular campaign though. The power of a story lies in its ability to transform, transfer, and transcend, right? So this captivated the people, why you should never come to Sri Lanka. And then when they actually dived into the article, they had a lot more to find than negative reasons. And stories endure. What you're looking at is literally the oldest story ever told, known as the Epic of Gilgamesh, first written on stone in somewhere around 1800 before Common Era. How many other things do you know that have survived for over 3,800 years, right? So this is the power of stories. It connects things, and by connecting, it perseveres, it persists, and then it lives in the people's minds, right? The oldest truths that we know are not scientific truths. The oldest truth that the humankind believes in, they're stories, they're legends, they're epics, and there's a reason for it, and we need to tap into that reason. If you're not convinced yet, let me present you one of the cutting edge researches done by Google. This is called You and a Story. The final slide tells you the level of attention you get at the 4 stages of stories. You with no story gets almost no traction. You telling a story gets some attention. You within a story gets a lot of attention. And the final point, the epic point, is when you become the story. That is when you have the ultimate attention and possibly immortal level of perseverance. That's it from my end. Thank you very much. I may have taken a bit more time. If that is the case, my apologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chamira. It's very, very interesting, and you left us with a lot of things to reflect on. So with interest time, I'm directly moving into Ms. Sandhini's presentation. Sandhini, can you share the screen? And thank you so much again for joining us.
මේ එන්නකම් මේ ලේඩි කෙනෙක් මේ සඳනි කියලා ළමයි කතා කරන්න බලන්න. මේ එන්නකෝ.
Okay, I'm going to start. Let me introduce myself first. I'm not from a scientific background. So I belong to the Podujanya that you are trying to communicate with. Having said that, I have prepared a very small presentation. In here, I'll be speaking about writing. So let me share my screen with you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Sanni, we can hear you.
Yeah. So writing clearly, concisely, and precisely. So let me start by saying this. Now I have prepared this presentation from the perspective of Podujanya. We don't understand science, and we are looking forward to learn things from you. Having said that, I'm moving to my presentation. So there are 4 key points to remember when writing: audience, purpose, style, and flow. One second. So the first thing is audience. When you start writing, you should consider audience before you start it. The audience directly affects your content, and also the effectiveness of your essay is measured by the person who reads it. You can write anything which only you think is good, but in reality, it could be very less interesting, or let's put it bluntly, as boring to general public. If you assume that your readers are familiar with the subject, you will not provide much background information. But if you are writing to general public, make sure they understand. Provide enough information for them to understand about the particular subject you are going to speak about. The purpose. Audience and purpose are interconnected. If the audience knows less than the writer, then the purpose is instructional. You are trying to teach them something, trying to educate them about something. So in that, the first thing that I noticed as a writer and a person who is not from a very science-related background is one key thing that I see that discourages us from reading scientific things is the attitude that that article shows towards the Podujanya. So if your purpose is to educate the general public, first of all, you have to give them the vibe that I'm trying to help and I'm on your side. So the third thing is style. Make sure that your writing is based on an appropriate style. Like I said before, in this, we are talking about the tone and the voice. These two things are not the same. Every article, every piece of writing got its own tone. And it got its own voice. Most of the time, with the technical terms that you use when you are writing, the general public might feel, well, this person sounds arrogant. I'm not saying that you are arrogant or whatever, but the article might sound like that because the lack of information that we have about this particular subject. So the tone should be very friendly. It should never make the reader feel that you are discriminating them or taking them as fools, bluntly putting it. You should always make them feel that, yes, we are on your side. I'm just trying to help you in this. So the tone should be very friendly and very supportive. Always, an article with a supportive tone is more encouraging to the general public. The flow. Sorry. The fourth point is flow. Another important factor is flow. It means moving from one statement in a text to another. It is obvious that by keeping the flow and making clear connection of ideas and concepts, you will help your audience to flow the text. The flow is clear. Let me tell you, the flow, the consistency of the flow is what makes the reader wants to move it from one paragraph to the other. It actually makes the reader wants to go through the entire text. So when you start writing, when you start your opening paragraph, you should maintain that certain style till the end. We call it the flow. So having said that, let's write. Think about your opening paragraph. As Chamira said, this is the hook. Is it gripping? Will it make readers want to continue reading? So let's say you posted your article on a certain platform. It is crowded. It is full of other things, more interesting things than a science-based article. You have to compete with sinking ships. You have to compete with the beautiful Pial Hansamali. You have to compete with Madhavi Anthony's news. You have to compete with politicians' nonsense and make your piece of writing something worth reading. So, yeah. So your opening paragraph should be the most interesting part of the essay if you want readers to continue or readers to start reading it. Okay. So for that, you can actually start it from something that everyone is interested about at the moment. Pick words carefully. Words must be simple, professional, and suitable. Now, we all can agree, more than an informative article, a common Opadupa is very interesting. People love to talk about what Pial Hansamali wore to the party, how she accused someone, how she shouted at someone. People like to talk about that. People like to talk about what happened in Devake more than an informative article. We have to accept that. So we are talking to that audience. From their very interesting informations, we are stealing a moment to show them what we have. So pick words carefully. Words must be simple. These words should be common words that everyone can understand. But they should be professional to some extent. Your article shouldn't be what I write about science. It should have that professionalism. Now, with the first paragraph, you grab their attention. With your simple and carefully selected words, you make them want to read it. And with your professional selection of words, you make them believe in what you are going to say. Try to explain, use examples. When explaining, always use common examples which are not very alien to general public. In other words, gedara dore kawuruth danna examples පාවිච්චි කරන්න. These should always be very common things that me and my fellows know. My fellows means the general public. Use simple language that we spoke about it already. Throughout the article, try to use simple language. Go into details, use professional terms, and try to explain them in the simplest way possible. Break your essay into subtopics. If your article is long, always break them into subtopics. When doing it, don't disrupt the flow. There's a technique called outlining, which you prepare a small draft before writing the actual article. Outlining can actually help you to keep the flow, but outlining is not always needed, but it makes you move through the article swiftly. Use storytelling method. As Chamira said before, people like to listen to stories, to things that happen to other people. Use that method. When building a story, don't go into unnecessary details. Right after you started the story, which is going to be the main body of your subject, just give the reader a hint. Why am I going to tell the story to you? So in that, the reader knows exactly what he should gather from this story. Be precise, specific. Use qualifiers to fine-tune what you write. Be precise. Just don't beat around the bush and load your article with unnecessary information. You might know more than what you write, but that's fine. Write what is only necessary in the article, what is relevant to the subject. Be specific of what you want to communicate. Use qualifiers, which gives your article a certain depth. It makes it more reliable. People believe when you say, this person said this here. Always show from where you took it. In that way, you are giving the original writer the credit he deserves, plus you make us believe that this article is reliable. Use short or very short sentences here and there. In writing, we call this the breathing space. Never make sentences to paragraph. Never turn sentences to paragraphs. When you turn a sentence to a paragraph, especially when it comes to science and technical stuff, the reader tend to forget the opening few words of the sentence before he ends it. So always try to use short lines, plus use short or very short sentences here and there. So it gives the reader a small breathing space to absorb what he read so far. Rewrite any familiar phrases. When you try to explain things in details, this happens. You tend to rewrite things that you already said. So always try not to do it. Reread, read and reread and rewrite familiar phrases. Remove all the things that you have said before in the article. Think about your ending. Leave readers remembering your work. This is one of the most important things when it comes to writing. This is like the final touch to the food that you just prepared. This is how you serve it. Leave readers remembering what you wrote, not wondering. The reader shouldn't feel, oh, what did I just read? What was it about? Shouldn't be that. The reader should feel happy or contented about what he read. The reader shouldn't feel, oh, I wasted my time, data, and energy on this. The answers the reader had on the particular subject should be the questions the reader had on this particular subject should be answered to an extent at least, and the article should be ended in a proper way, a proper tone. In Sinhala, we call it Sangruta Karana. That means finishing it in a proper way. After finishing your first draft, this is the most important thing. After finishing your first draft, look for anything that might represent something else. After publishing something, you just can't say, this is not what I wanted to say. Oh, this is not what I wanted to communicate. You cannot apologize like that. People make mistakes, yes, but you shouldn't be misleading people with your article. That is not your purpose. So, thank you very much. Good luck in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanni. So you ended with a very important point. We should write, but we should not leave the public confused or feeling uncomfortable. So that brings us to the end of this first round of discussion. Since we have a lot of questions to answer, I would like to begin the second round by throwing a question at Nalika. So I thank all of you again before I start this second round, and then I will hand it over to Disnaka. So all of you did an excellent job. Thank you again for those very interesting presentations. In fact, you all went beyond information and educate us and also inspired us. I'm sure most of you here are those who have not yet started writing to the public are now motivated to write to the public. And you also left us with something to reflect on. So we had a Google form for the potential writers or the interested people to register with us. And there was a very important question posted on that. The question is, what is communication ethics? And we would like to know about communication ethics in relation to communicating to the public. So I think we discussed most of these aspects during the presentations, but I would like Mr. Nalika to elaborate on these things. As scientists or professionals, we at some point have communicated to our peers. So in those scientific communications, we consider very much about publication ethics. So we try to avoid plagiarism, duplications, and also we consider about the authorship, other aspects, and also potential for conflict of interest. And those same principles apply for communication to the public, I'm sure, but apart from these, there are certain other things that we have to be careful as the speakers discuss. We should not try to confuse or make the public uncomfortable. We should respect them. So to summarize that ethical part, I would like your opinion, Nalika.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I think all the ethical considerations in peer-to-peer communication also applies to public communication of science. The ethical considerations should remain the same. Additionally, not misleading the public and not causing any harm. Do not create anything harmful in terms of your public communication. That is, I think, an additional consideration. There was also a question from Janit. I'd like to link that to this remark. When you have now his question in summary is, when an expert or someone trained in science is talking of another discipline completely different from her own discipline, what is it acceptable or ethical? I would say no, because you draw your strength, your credibility as a scientist from your own training, from your own area of specialization. So if a archaeologist is talking about health, or if a health person is talking about archaeology, that person is a layman where the other specializations are concerned. You may be an expert, a very good expert in your own specialization, but when it comes to other disciplines, you can't claim to have that expertise. So therefore, you can misrepresent, distort, and mislead the public. And thereby, I would say, always avoid going beyond your field unless you can relate it to your field. Now, for example, taking the current COVID concern, pandemic. Now, there is a very clear link to your area. The zoonotic viruses and the link to animals and the jumping of viruses from animals to humans. So there is a link. And thereby you can come to the discussion about pandemic in that manner. Another thing with ethics, especially with public, is disclosure of any vested interest, any conflict of interest, because there are researchers who work for industry. There are researchers who are advisors or consultants to various consumer product companies. Always, if you are communicating even in a personal capacity, it's necessary, it's very important to disclose your relevant other involvements or interests. So that's a quick answer to your question, Taranga.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nalika. So I would like to hand over to Disnaka to continue the discussion and the Q&A session. Disnaka, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Taranga. After wonderful sessions, we are now moving to the Q&A session. For the moment, we have only 2 questions. I put them into a slide PowerPoint presentation. Now I will share my slide, and so everybody can see. So with that, let's start. Yeah, hope everyone can see. Yeah, this one, first one, of course, the first one was to Mr. Nalika. He answered that. So we will move into the other 2. One is an open question to panelists. What are your thoughts on using audio-visual over write-ups in science communication in the area of new media? So this is an open question to panelists. Ms. Nalika, would you like to start?
Yeah, not sure exactly what is meant by this question of
Yes,
using audiovisuals over write-ups. Can whoever asked the question
yeah, name
explain a
was
bit?
not mentioned. This number is here now. The person, the participant who has raised this question can switch on your mic and ask the question directly. Can you please?
Yeah, I think the question is about videos and animations.
Hmm.
So what is the opinion of the panelists about using videos and animations instead of write-ups when communicating science, especially in this era of new media?
Thanks. So the short answer is they are extremely powerful, provided you get the science right and there is no distortion or there is no oversimplification. It's a very effective way to communicate facts and figures and simple concepts. Now, in the current pandemic, for example, WHO and other various medical and health bodies have been using more and more simple animations to get the basic disease control and pandemic response messages to a wider public as widely as possible. So it is definitely, and now the good thing is new digital tools and apps are now available which enables even you and me to play with animations and create simple animations without having too much of advanced training or skill in it. So there's a lot of mass produced or public produced content also coming in with people playing with these various digital tools and apps.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nalika. The next question is from Dr. Susanta. Dear panelist, most of the time I have seen some writers use photos in their writings, in which copied from various sources without acknowledging the actual source. In addition to plagiarism, what are the possibilities of using any such photos? It's an open question. Dr. Pial, would you like to answer?
Yeah. First of all, if you take something from the web, if you take something from any other person, please mention that you have taken. If it is not original creation by you, you have to always show the reference. So you have to tell at least which website you have taken it. So that's why in articles, sometimes you have seen, I have taken this particular picture from this website also. That is one thing. The pictures on the websites or in Google, most of them are copyrighted. If you go to Google and if you click a picture, on the side underneath that, it might say this is copyrighted or this has kind of intellectual property. So what you need to do is, if you are using that particular picture for money making purposes, sometimes if they find out that you are using that, they can sue you. So this is what my understanding and what I have used in my most of the articles, if I do that. But if it is not money making, you can use it with reference, like with citing that thing, so that you can. It's not a plagiarism. It is not a plagiarism, but you have to always respect the original creator of whatever the picture. Or you are taking some sentences. For example, you quote articles. World Health Organization said this and that, and you can put quote and unquote, and then refer that particular website or article or the blog or whatever. So that is how the ethical practice in writing. It is taught in schools, and school in the sense in mostly undergraduate level. When you write an article or paper, report or something, that's why the references and bibliography comes in. So it's always ethical to tell whom I have taken from. The previous question, I wanted to give a little bit of insight on that. I believe that a couple of things. Always with the new information era, everybody likes to see audio visuals or listen to things rather than reading. So for myself, example, instead of reading some books, I use audio books, so that when I drive or when I run, when I'm working in some non-value added something, I always listen to audiobooks. So that is one way you can utilize your time. Similarly, people like to see things rather than read. So that's why in the new media, they are always into audio visuals. For example, I have written some articles on using about food safety. Those articles are not read by 1,000 people. But recently I did a video, about 15 minutes video with Sri Lanka Business TV about food safety. It has about 64,000 views. It's the biggest, highest number of views from the Sri Lanka Business TV. So people wants to have kind of a visual feeling right now rather than reading. So that's about that. So that's what I have to tell.
Thank you, Dr. Pial.
Dr. Desneka.
There's another question. Yes, Dr. Taranga.
I'm Austin Ferreira. Can I make a comment on that, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Yeah. Just to add to what was said about using material from other sources, I'm not aware of the real situation with popular writing, but for scientific writing, of course, as he said, if you quote something, that's fine, giving the reference and other things. That's what we do in scientific literature all the time. But usually it is not allowed to copy photographs and illustrations from an article, even after giving the reference and acknowledging, because those normally, depending on the journal, the copyright will be with the journal or with the authors. So for scientific purposes, you cannot really take any illustrative material from those, but you can certainly quote and other things as long as you acknowledge. Okay, just to add to what was said. Taranga, Taranga, what do you think, Taranga, in your experience, is that
yes,
reasonable?
Yes, thank you very much for highlighting that point, sir. Even for using in magazines like this, I think we can't do that unless you get permission from the copywriter. So there are different areas like Creative Commons and so on, where they sometimes allow using such figures or pictures, but mostly they are copyrighted. So even for this kind of magazine, I think, sir, we should not encourage writers to do that, isn't it? Thanks for highlighting that,
Good,
sir.
thanks, yeah.
Right, yes, any other thoughts from the audience about that, or any other aspect of the things that we discussed so far?
Yes, participants, you can, if you wish to talk now, you can switch on your mic and ask the question or comment. We have quite a good number here, 55 participants. It's an impressive number and enthusiastic number of enthusiastic veterinarians, those who are interested in writing. So please come up with your ideas or questions.
There's a question about targeting 2 reader groups. So in my opinion, that's one of the best things. You can catch 2 audience. So what you can write is that you can write a common information, but if you have specific information, you can say this this advice, or this part is for the host owners, and for handlers this will be much more effective and all these things. So you can always specify what audience you are addressing in that specific paragraph, so that way they will figure out what is more important for them. But you can start in common language. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Pial. I think this we missed one other question. Dr. Janit is asking, when a person or persons responsible for critical issue or a situation, example, duration for the booster dose for specific COVID vaccine, change the position from time to time, can we rely on them? Okay, so I will read that. When a person or persons responsible for critical issues or a situation change the position from time to time, can we rely on them? What is the remedy even for the scientific community? Okay, I think, yeah, anyone would like to answer that? Nalika?
Yeah, let me just briefly say that in the current pandemic, how our health, public health and medical communities have communicated to the public has a lot of problems. There has been unnecessary confusion created because of the unprofessional and erratic manner in which public communication has been done. I think this question also relates to that. But let me also acknowledge that it has been a big challenge, because early days of the pandemic, there was very little known about the virus and its epidemiology. As months passed, things became clearer, but even now, the full picture may still not be known. So there is ongoing research, and as research brings out new knowledge, the earlier communications have to be revisited and improved and sometimes even discarded. Now that hasn't happened. Then when it came to the vaccines also, there was needless confusion, partly because non-scientific people from administrative service, from military, were talking to the public through the media about something as specialized as vaccination. And this has led to these current concerns. It's a case study, certainly, on communicating to the public in times of an emergency, what not to do and how to do things right. That's a case study that remains to be written. But the take-home point is, when media spokespersons are appointed for the health ministry or for any other technical area, they need to be very, very responsible, careful in what they say. And sometimes it's best not to say if clarity is not available, that we simply don't know. Now, this is something our communicators, technical communicators, have not been doing in this pandemic. When there are uncertainties, they didn't want to acknowledge it. They have instead tried to speculate, tried to provide their own interpretations or speculations or guesses instead of acknowledging the uncertainties or the gaps in knowledge. So much to be learned from this. I think the question is, what is the remedy? The remedy is have clear guidelines for those who communicate to the public on behalf of especially a government agency that has a technical mandate, and then make sure that the spokespersons or the technical experts who go before the media and through the media to the public, that they are well briefed and they also don't contradict each other. If it's say a talk show or a panel of experts, that they don't contradict each other and confuse the audience. All this has happened.
Thank you, Dr. Mr. Nalika. And there's another question to you. When a reputed scientific writer uses very common examples, within bracket in common word, cheap example, will that lead to deteriorate the value of the writer?
I don't know. I don't know what it means in very common examples, in common word and cheap example. I'm trying to imagine or guess what this is hinting at. It's okay to take everyday examples. There's nothing wrong in that. And sometimes taking metaphors from day-to-day experience and then trying to explain complex concepts is the way to communicate science to the public. As long as there is no oversimplification or distortion that happens in that process. Taking popular culture sometimes is okay. Popular culture, metaphors, starting with reference to a well-known drama or a movie moment or a song, that's perfectly fine. And I think those who are in marketing will be able to comment more on this in a more specific way, people like Chamira. But I'm not sure exactly what this question means. Nothing is too everyday, too mundane, let's just say. The idea is to communicate. The idea is to express, not to impress our audience with how much we know, how many big words we use, or how much of concepts we bring in. No, that's not at all. We just want to clarify and deepen their understanding, even if by a small point.
Thank you, Ms. Nalika. So that's all in chat box. Are there any questions directly? Would you like to ask directly any questions? There are so many authors of the previous newsletter, the magazine, and those who wish to contribute at the upcoming volumes of the magazine, please raise your questions or comments.
Listener, can you hear me, listener?
Yes, doctor. Yes.
Yeah, actually, I have a little, I don't know, this may be a layman question. I do raise it to Dr. Pial. Dr. Pial, in your first part of the presentation, you were elaborating that your article should be very simple. That means the complex to simple. And we are talking about using of very simple language to the audience. And later on, you turn into that simple into complex, right? And you one stage I heard you said that using a very low language also not possible. It's not, then you will be recognized as an unprofessional author, like, right? And at the latter part of the presentation, you elaborated on making complex simple into complex. So I mean, I was a little confused about this, policy. And can you elaborate it more, Dr. Pial, actually?
Thank you, Dr. Ariyananda. Actually,
Yeah.
what I meant was you have to always simplify your facts. You have to, because your audience is, as I said, your audience is a very diverse audience. It can be professionals and knowledgeable people like you in veterinary medicine. But again, there will be some people, the household people, like people who are living in houses with no such knowledge in veterinary medicine or about science. So you are addressing these two ends of the spectrum. So what I mentioned about making simple is that you have to give the information very simple manner, so both of the ends can understand. So that's why I said you have to give like info. For example, I said in one of the questions, I said you have to address in if you are writing a common article to two sets of so two sets in the society. So you have to specify, okay, I'm writing this information for this part of the society. You can talk about somewhat complex information. At the same time, you can simplify same information or different information in a very simple language by elaborating these facts in a different simple manner to that. Making simple complex means that I'm not talking about making really literally making it complex. When you talk about some facts and figures, you can always analyze it, and the analysis part is the complex making complex part. So you do analysis and then make it a fact-based analysis because of these situations or cases this happens. So that analysis part normal general public cannot do by themselves. That's why you are making the simple part, taking and analyze and give it to them. So that's in literally I said making simple things complex to do the analysis that cannot be done by the general public. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pial. Actually, yeah, it was. I thought actually literally. I mean, by language you have to make it complex. So now, yeah, now
No.
you can understand it. Yeah, by analytically.
As all of the panelists said, it has to be storytelling. It has to be very very simple because readers, they don't want to put their heads back again and analyze all these things. So just like TV. So in TV, what we see most of the time is like very simple drama. We don't see dramas like Dandubas Namane, Akala Sandhya anymore because they are making the drama to now the mentality of these people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pial. I think I would like to add a little more to that, what you have said. You were talking about addressing like both spectrums, the less educated and the educated. So y'all have seen encyclopedias and how they present facts in encyclopedias. Like first you will see a small overview with a bigger font. That if a kid is reading that encyclopedia, so it's in a simpler language so that the child can understand. And then it moves into deeper facts with smaller fonts. So like that, if your audience is wider, I think we can use such tactics to cover the basics for a general audience and in-depth information for a more educated audience. Am I right, Pial?
Exactly. And the other thing is, if you feel like your article is too long to address both sides, so you can have two articles. It's not a bad thing. So for example, you write the same topic maybe in one magazine, one issue you write to the highly educated audience with all the technical terms and everything. And then in the next one, you can put a footnote. You can say, there will be an article following this article to the next magazine that will for the general audience. So you can put it in a nice way that without offending the less educated people, you can say a continuation of this article will be from next, it will be in next magazine, so that you are connecting these two magazines and those both of the audiences will be addressed. And probably even less educated people will understand reading the next article and they will go back to the first article and understand something like that.
Okay, thank you. We have almost come to the end of the webinar. Now it's past 8 o'clock. The scheduled time is 8:06 in fact. But we can accommodate a few more questions, I think, Disnaka. If the audience has any more questions, please ask.
Yes, please ask. Meanwhile, there are so many compliments flooding into the chat box. Appreciating panelists, you are a great job. Dr. Sanjika, Dr. Sugithan, Dr. Janit, Dr. Udita. All those are compliment. Dr. Dhammika, Dr. Bodhiheva, Dr. Dulich, Dr. Chamira, and so many compliments are coming from participants. And still, if you have any questions,
yes,
give you time.
Yeah, I think we have a few students joining us. So I would like to ask this question from Sanduni, the youngest writer of the panelists. What is your advice as to like how somebody new to this field, a younger person, where should they start if they are interested in communicating to the public? Sanduni, I think you're still there. Sandini? Or anyone else in the panel?
Maybe I'll have a go at it as the oldest on the panel. Start communicating. Where to start? Communicate with your family, with your extended family. If you have access to students, try doing little very basic simple communications, whether it's written or 1 minute short videos or little infographics, whatever you like to produce. Try it on those who are near and dear to you. They are the ones who can give candid feedback. And if they say, well, we don't understand this, so maybe you should do a little more of that and this, that's very useful, honest feedback. So constantly try to first get your audience from the inner circles. That's one. Then the second thing is always look at what you enjoy consuming, whether it's on television, whether it's on Animal Planet, or whether it's on the web. Try to analyze, why do we like that? Why do people still listen to and respect David Attenborough, who is now 94 or 95 years old and still going strong and still doing more and more communications? What makes him tick? What are the enduring qualities that have made him what he is? And who are similar figures in our part of the world? And try to get inspired by communicators that we admire. Try to understand their creative approaches, their training, how they combine theory with practice, and all that. So there's a lot you can do to keep improving communication skills as people who would like to do more and more public communications.
I have one more advice to that, Nalika.
Yeah.
The best audience is your Facebook, right? Start, for me, I test certain articles. I just, Nalika even sent me a private message one day when I made an adverse article on Dhammika Paniya, because I wanted to make fun of it. And then Nalaka realized that it is not going in the same way as we expected. Nalaka advised me not to do such a thing. So
no, I said not to be sarcastic, because some people don't get the sarcasm and might think you are actually endorsing the Dhammika Paniya.
Yeah, that's the thing. So so what I always did was I started writing in blogs first, and then I came to Facebook. And then if you are a good writer, if your writings are accepted by your audience, the best thing is you can see how many likes, how many shares it is taking. So if your writing is effective, it will be shared all over the Facebook, because people feel like it is worth sharing. So that's the best judgment you can see when you get matured, or when you start writing. just you can drop small articles, small information, pieces of information. You can put it into your account and then see how many people will take it forward. And people will tell, there will be honest opinions also. They can say, okay, this part is good, this part is bad, and all these things. And if you are reluctant to do by yourself, by your name, you can have a little fake account, and that's only for writing. Don't use for any other thing. But that will also take up, so you can be popular in your pen name in that way. If you are bold enough, of course, it's better to go with your real account, and that will create a reputation on you, and then it will be very easy. Of course, first couple of months, first couple of attempts, you will see maybe failures. Of course, nobody got successful in the first time. So that's the best thing, I think, after talking to your family and friends.
Hope that so many Facebook writers will come up with these motivating words.
Yes, thank you, Nalika and Pial, for those wonderful advice. I must say, Pial, I think your point is very good for the youngsters, especially, and who are active on social media, the younger generation, and also, yes, why not the older generation as well. And Nalika, as you say, if we are interested in telling stories or writing stories, the best place is for you to listen to other stories or read other stories so that you learn and then communicate. So listening is an important part, and learning is also a very important part in whatever we do. So in the absence of any more questions, I think it's time for us to wind up this, Nika, isn't it?
Yes, Dr. Taranga,
Point from a scientist perspective, perhaps I might say that in this age of rapid scientific and technological advances, the development, even the general public is interested to know the scientific findings. So the scientists out there, think about communicating your findings to the public in a language and in a way that they understand, so that it will be useful for them in their day-to-day life, and it might be useful for the policymakers in framing our nations, and in many ways. So to wind up the session, I hand over to this Nika with a final thank you note to all the panelists, the speakers, the eminent speakers, the well-experienced speakers today, for accepting our invitation and doing a wonderful session. We really enjoyed it, and we all learned a lot, and we are inspired to write to the public, definitely. So thank you so much again. And Visnaka, to you to conclude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Taranga Toradania. And I would like to invite Dr. Sugat, our secretary, for the vote of thanks. But before that, I must thank all the panelists, Mr. Nalika, Dr. Pial, Mr. Chamira, and Ms. Chandini, for a wonderful session we had today. And it was really interesting, and we had a good time today in the evening. So at the same time, I would like to invite the participants today to write the magazine, which was launched for the first time in SLVA history. So the upcoming volume, which is the second volume, will be published in July. So we are now receiving articles from authors. So those who are participated today are the real enthusiastic veterinarians, those who are interested in writing, and there were so many authors of the previous volume, and hope we can continue. And please send your articles. We will be receiving articles till end of this June, and we will be printing the magazine by end of the July. So we have a committee, scientific committee, or the editorial committee, of course, to review the articles. So please keep sending your articles. We have already received some articles. So we will have a good much advanced version by the July. So from there onwards, quarterly, this magazine will be published by SLVA. It will be a magazine where we publishing newsletter every year. The upcoming course will be publishing this magazine in future. So with that final remarks, I would like to invite Dr. Sugat Premachandra, Secretary SLVA, to deliver a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jisakar. Good evening. Dr. Ariyananda Gunawardhana, the President of Sri Lanka Veterinary Association. Mr. Nalika Gunawardhana, key resource person today. Dr. Pial Ariyananda, Consultant in Sustainable Innovation. Mr. Chamira Devake, Google Certified Digital Analyst. Ms. Tendacon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the valuable information shared with us to improve our knowledge and skills. We believe that the knowledge you have shared will help immensely in the improvement of our writing skills. On behalf of the Executive Committee, I take this opportunity to extend our most sincere gratitude to Mr. Nalika Gunawardhana, Key Resource Person, Dr. Pial Ariyananda, Consultant in Sustainable Innovation, Mr. Chamira Devake, Google Certified Digital Analyst, and Ms. Tendacon, who accepted our invitation as resource person despite their busy schedule. We are grateful to Dr. Taranga Thoradeniya, Dr. Sunil Disnaka for your special support to make this workshop a success. I would like to thank to all the professors, doctors, authors of the magazine, and the students who participated today to make this workshop a success. Thank you. Dr. Disnaka?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yes, good night, everyone. Yeah.
Good night.